Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase, the podcast by indie authors for indie authors. I am your host, now 7-time award-winning author, Chad Robert Morgan. And let's get right into it. First of all, Creep IE is only 2 weeks away. And this one's going to be interesting because we've already had one cancellation and we might get a second. So the first person to cancel was the first person to be signed up as a major headliner for the con, which is Bruce Campbell. The con then added a bunch of extra ones. In fact, I was actually going to look into doing something special for the headliners, but they kept adding headliners, and I was like, there's no way I can keep up with this. And it's a good thing I didn't, because I would have spent a lot of time doing the Bruce Campbell one for no reason, because that was um, the worst in terms of time thing that I was going to build. And so then they added Robert England, they added Cassandra Peterson, and they added Keith Sutherland. He supposedly got in a little bit of trouble with an Uber driver and was arrested, I guess. It's being reported here in the Washington Post that Sutherland was arrested. So, um, that's sort of a good excuse to not show up for the con if you were in jail. I don't know if he was released. I'm sure it was a minor offense. I don't know the legitimacy of the complaint. I haven't read it. I just kind of heard it in passing, and a little light bulb went on, because again, are we losing a second headliner at Creep IE because of this? I don't know. So that's going to be curious. Then they went and added Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future, among other things. So the headliners are keep they keep, for every like two they add, they seem to lose one. So through no fault of their own. I don't know why Bruce Campbell dropped. He was very apologetic in his email. Keith Sutherland, he didn't plan to drop. He might still be there. I don't know. But that's going to be really curious to see what's going to happen. So, but that's in 2 weeks. I am gearing up for the event. Stuff is ordered and being shipped, stocking up on the books, and I am getting ready because this is going to be a big one. So please come see me. Again, if you want discount coupons or discount codes, you can use Macabre to support Scott Harper, or you can use Diabolic to support our friends over at Diabolic Comics. So we're trying something a little new for this podcast. Normally, I use this mic here. This is my with the pop filter on it. Here, take that off. The Samsung G microphone. I use this when I'm doing my narration. I usually do it for the podcast. This is an excellent mic. I've had like about 5 of these. Purely by luck, because I ordered 2 when I started the podcast. I already had 1. I ordered 2 just for the podcast because it was me and my son. Never could get 2 mics working at the same time without getting a weird delay and an echo, so we switched to using 1. And when I ordered the 2, Amazon, for whatever reason, sent me 4. So I had spares. I gave 1 or 2 away. Now I'm back down to 1. I don't. 1 broke for sure. I don't know, and I gave 1 away. I don't know where the other 2 went. They just vanished. But coming up, we are planning to do a really special event. We're planning on doing an interview at a really cool site. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, but it would require me to kind of up my game in terms of being able to record multiple audio. Before, when I was doing it with my son, like I said, when we tried 2 mics, I was getting a weird doubling up. That didn't work too well. Usually when I do an interview, we are doing it through Zoom, so I can isolate their audio from my audio. That's usually not a problem. But now we're starting to look into doing more in-person stuff on location. So I invested in this lapel mic. And what's really cool about it is it comes in this charging case. And it actually has two mics. And plugged into the computer is the little wireless dongle that's accepting the input from both mics simultaneously. So I'm using that mic today, and we will see how this turns out in the recording. I'm already seeing that I'm spiking in the red, so I have to turn it down, probably because the mic is literally right under my my mouth. So I will let you know how these work out. So that's going to be interesting. What does that have to do with writing? Not a damn thing, but that's okay. That's just for the podcast because we are planning on doing some cool shit this year, trying to really up our game. So let's talk a little bit about something that happened to me literally last night. And that is, I was watching this comedy routine from Christopher Titus, who's one of my favorite comedians. In fact, he's probably my second favorite comedian after Robin Williams. And he said a line that perked my ears up because he was quoting me word for word. So he was talking about suicide. And for the record, he was saying that it's a bad thing. You shouldn't do it, right? In case, not sure how else you should talk about it, but, just to clarify. And he said, it is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that really perked my ears up because I have said those exact words for decades. And I'm like, is he quoting me now? Because I quote him all the time. One of my favorite quotes from him is, I don't fail, I succeed in finding what doesn't work. And now he's quoting me. And I'm like, how the hell did he hear that? Did something that I invent become so ubiquitous that it's just in the vernacular now? Did I not invent it? Did I maybe hear it and didn't register that I heard it consciously? Or maybe that I heard it, but I forgot that I heard it, but the lesson was still in there. Like, when I was 6 months old, they taught me how to say mama dada. I still know how to say mama dada, even though I don't remember being taught that. I don't remember the lesson, but I remember learning how to do. I don't remember being given the lesson, but I remember how to do that task because it's just embedded deep in the mind. So was it already in the vernacular and I heard it and regurgitated it, thought it was my own creation? I I mean, it's just to me really, but it's like I for the longest time thought that was one of the turn of phrases that was uniquely me, and maybe it's not. Maybe somebody else came up with the same phrasing, but I mean, it was the exact wording, which it wasn't like he said something similar to it. It was the exact, and I'm like, he's quoting me. That was my first thought. So, um, whether he's actually quoting me or it's just a coincidence, I don't know. But it did get me to think: have you ever had somebody quote you as a writer? You're writing books, you're putting it out there. Your character is saying something like "from infinity to beyond." Obviously that's Buzz Lightyear, but you know what I'm saying. He's saying something cool like that, or live long and prosper, or may the force be with you. And next thing you know, you're in a convention, and one of the conventioners, you hear them say that, and you're like, "That's from my book. They read that, right?" Have you ever had that experience where it is a quotation that seems to come directly from you, and you feel that surge of, I've added something to the vernacular of the world, basically? Let me know. Let me know in your comments if anything like that has happened to you, whether it was really your words or you felt like it was your words, even though it might have been a coincidence or anything like that. Let me know what you think about that. And that also brings me to another topic that I was thinking about. This led to another one while I was free thinking for the podcast, and that's separating the art from the artist. And what I mean by that is and this ties into another topic that I was going to broach on this podcast. When, like, for example, we know R. Kelly is not a great guy, right? He went to trial, did some bad things with underage girls, but people still like his music, and they're like, "Oh man, it's like, yeah, no, he's a horrible person, but damn, he can sing." One of my favorite comedians as a child was Bill Cosby. Now, obviously, Bill Cosby, we later found out, was doing some really bad things, and nobody wants to, if they mention him, it's always to make fun of the fact that he was a horrible person, and nobody really talks about all the great things that he did because it's overshadowed by all the horrible things that he's done. I mean, he invented Fat Albert, which was a cartoon series for, you know, black kids in a time when that didn't exist. He was a fantastic comedian. I used to memorize his routines. He was, at least on the surface, to everybody who saw him, was a fantastic person all around, right? I mean, he had a reputation for that, which also went on when he did the Cosby Show, which was the highest rated TV show at the time. Where it's just he was just Mr. Dad, right? He was the personification of wholesomeness. And then we turn out that he's roofing people and don't want to get into much detail and get demonetized or anything, but you know what I'm saying. He did some very, very bad things, and he got busted for it many years later, way, way, way too long, right? I mean, this had been going on for ages, and they busted him at a time when I think he was just too old to do that anymore. And it's like, why did you bust him when he was doing it? But it was a different time. We when I look back at those times, I still love those albums, those comedy routines, even though I'm not too terribly thrilled with the person who made them anymore. And so that's kind of my question: is can we separate the art from the artist? There was actually an episode of the Carmichael Show. I think it only lasted one season. Carmichael was a great show. He was a great comedian, and he's still a great comedian. Where he gets tickets to go see Bill Cosby. He wants to go see Bill Cosby, and the whole episode is basically this debate. Can he go and enjoy Bill Cosby's comedy, knowing what Bill Cosby, the person, has done? And I bring this up because I was talking about the events coming up, and I don't want to talk about which one specifically. Um, I'll get to why in a minute. Um, and somebody posted something that somebody on that convention posted about the ICE raids. For a little bit of context, in case you're not in the U.S. or you live under a rock, and I don't want to get too political on this. I just really top level. Um, ICE, which is the Immigration Enforcement organization here in the United States, has gone full blown raiding cities looking for illegal aliens to deport. And it's gotten a lot of protests because of their tactics. A woman was shot in the face in Minneapolis, who was not being deported, was arguably just trying to get out of the way. There's debate about that. Again, I don't want to get too in the weeds. This is not a political show. The point being is it is a very divisive issue. There's people that are saying that they're becoming like Gestapo, and other people saying that they're doing the job that needed to be done, which is cleaning out illegal aliens from the country. Again, not stating my opinion on it. I'm just trying to give you what the background is, right? Not trying to take sides in this. The reason I'm trying not to take sides in this is because I'm trying to run a business here. Now, do I have an opinion as an individual? Yes. But when I'm up here promoting my books, talking about conventions, doing the podcast, I want to leave that on the table, right? I want to leave that in the next room. I don't want to bring it here. And the reason this comes up is because, like I said, I was talking about these conventions coming up, and some of them are looking for vendors and putting up ads. And somebody posted on it that somebody on that convention on their social media posted their opinion on the ICE raids. Now, I haven't verified whether or not it's true or not, so I don't want to say whether it was pro or con. I don't want to say who it was because I don't want to spread rumors. But the point of me bringing all this up is my advice to anybody who is trying to run a business, who's trying to be an independent author, who is trying to run a convention, is be as apolitical as possible, right? I have multiple social medias. I have social medias that are mine as a person, and social medias that are for my company, which publishes my books, does the podcast, and everything like that. So Chad Robert Morgan will post things on his Facebook account saying, this is good, this is bad, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. He's political as fuck. Spectral Inc., on the other hand, says none of that. And again, I'm bringing this up because I have seen like other authors who are friends of mine, and they've posted things where I'm like, okay, I don't agree with them politically. They're great people, I like them, but obviously he's kind of getting a little political right now, and I don't agree with him. That's okay. Once upon a time, we could disagree politically, and not it wouldn't be the end of the friendship. Those glorious old days. Um, but it did get me thinking: is that he's using that account to promote his books? He's using it to promote where he's being at conventions, and then at the same time, he's doing it to support certain political candidates and certain political movements. And I'm like, we should separate those. Chad Robert Morgan, the author, and Chad Robert Morgan, the person, should have two completely different social media accounts. Because, I mean, it can really derail what you're trying to do as an indie author. Like, look at J.K. Rowling, for example. Right now, everybody's mad at her because she has gone very anti trans. Before she kind of went off on that, and I really don't understand why she has. Um, Again, not trying to get into pro or con trans people kind of thing, because again, I'm trying to not be political. But before she went down that rabbit hole, she was very, very progressive, right? She was like, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay. Yeah, Dumbledore's always been gay. I just didn't actually outright say it, you know? When they did the Cursed Child play and they cast a black woman as Hermione, people lost their fucking minds. And she's like, no, 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 I never really said that she was white or black. I just said she had like a really kinky hair kind of thing, and had some buck teeth that she fixed with a spell. That was it. I never said she was white. Never said she was black. I left it open ended, so I'm fine with it, right? So she was very progressive, and then this whole trans people uh, competing and everything like that. She was one of the ones that was during the last Olympics. There was a woman who was a boxer that they accused of being trans. That she was actually a guy that went through a surgery, even though she was from a country that didn't allow that. And a lot of people kind of prematurely jumped on the oh, this person's horrible. And it came out like the next day that no, this really is a woman. And she had a little bit of egg on her face because she was one of the ones that was talking trash about her, even though it wasn't true. Because she's just so anti-trans. The minute she heard it, she just wow and jumped on it, and that's really hurt her in her popularity. Right? There's people that are, and she right now she's writing under another name for when she's doing the Corman Strike books, and that anti-trans uh, stance is coming back to her business, to her writing. I think she is a fantastic writer. But there's people that are like, I don't want to read Harry Potter anymore because she's, like this and everything like that. And I think that's horrible in the sense that I think Harry Potter is some of the best books written in recent years. I thought they were fantastic. Somebody really screwed up book 4 for me when they pointed out the huge plot hole in the thing and ruined it for me for life. But until then, I was like, these are fantastic. And now people are looking at these books thinking back to they're looking at the art while keeping the artist in mind, and now their opinion of the artist is way darker. And just getting back to that general topic, can we separate the art from the artist? And I mean, it kind of depends, I think. I mean, if you saw this really beautiful painting and it touched you and everything, oh my God, this is beautiful. Who painted this? Adolf Hitler. I'm gonna go, right? I mean, it's just I think at some point you cross a line where you can't, right? No matter how good of a painter he was, and he wasn't, but I mean, if he was the best painter in the whole world, you would still sit there and go, "Yeah, I do not want it. I do not want a Hitler in my house. I don't care how touching it is. But we see other actors like well, let's look at Keith Sutherland. He's got this arrested. I he got into some argument with an Uber driver. I have no idea what the details are, but is that really going to curtail his career? I don't think so, because it's just such a minor incident. We do also tend to be a little loose and inconsistent. Like, I remember when Peter Gunn was fired from Disney because he had said some things like 20 years before when he was trying to be all edgy and everything like that, and he apologized. He's like, "Look, I was trying to be hip and cool and edgy, and I came off sounding like a jerk. I'm sorry. It was not a smart thing." And they fired him anyway. And there was such a huge backlash from that Disney had to turn around, reverse course, and hire him back to do Guardians 3. And that really hurt Marvel. It didn't hurt James Gunn at all. In fact, it propelled James Gunn to now reboot the DCU over at Warner Brothers, and he's now the guy in charge of all that. At Marvel, he was just in charge of a part of the MCU. Now he's in charge of the entire DC universe. assuming it survives the whole Warner Brothers, Netflix, Paramount merger thing that's happening. That's another problem. So there's times when we're very forgiving of the artist because we love the art, and then there's times when we're not, and where that line is drawn can sometimes be a bit ambiguous. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, I mean, going back to Bill Cosby, what he did was horrible. I think he did that to something like over 40 women over the course of his career. So I mean, he wasn't just doing bad things; he was a serial doing bad things. You know what I'm saying? So that one's a little harder to defend, supporting the art and ignoring the artist. But then you look at like R. Kelly, and he did horrible things, and there's still people like, yeah, but his songs are really good. So I don't know. I think I mean, again, it's going to be a case by case basis, but just something to think about. If you're reading somebody's work, are you influenced by the artist who wrote it? I mean, if you're reading like Hemingway, and you're like, and you're like, yeah, but I heard Hemingway killed puppies or something. I don't know. Does that turn you off from the book, in spite of the fact of how good the book is? Leave your opinions. Leave your write it on the comments. Email me at ias at spectrumlinkproductions.com. That's IAS Indie Author Showcase at spectrumlinkproductions.com. Or leave a comment on the podcast, whether it be Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Let me know. Let me know what you think. I think it's an interesting topic, and I'd love to hear your opinions on the thing. And with that, let's get into this week's showcase. So for this week's showcase, we actually listened to one of my fellow audiobook reviewer winners, Dead Friends by Jason R. Davis. First, Lizzie lost her best friend, who then returned from the dead. And now the rest of her friends have started dying. When Lizzie inherits her late uncle's secluded estate, she expects nothing more than a rustic cabin in the woods. However, within minutes of exploring her newfound property, her friend is brutally murdered. Soon other friends begin dying, only to return as haunting apparitions. Lizzie must unravel the dark secrets hidden within the estate before everyone she knows becomes another dead friend. So this is a fellow award winner, and I would say when this guy was on point, he was good. Like when he first starts the thing, and we have the instigating incident where she has the cabin, she's checking out the cabin, somebody comes and attacks her friend, and then comes to attack her. I was hooked. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good book and everything like that. There were times we started getting filled with Chafa. Like after the first few deaths, it sort of had a little bit of a pause, and she kind of goes back to normal life, even though she's got all these ghosts hanging around. And we've talked about that a little bit. In fact, I was listening to this at the same time I was reading Shelley and talking about how Doug Brode was very economical with his words. There was no Chafa in that. If you don't know what Chafa is, I've talked about this in the past. It comes from a stand-up special Kevin Smith did, and he was talking about filming Cop Out with Bruce Willis. And Bruce Willis would take the script and start ripping out pages and goes, Chafa, Chafa, Chafa. And Kevin Smith is like, hey boss, what's Chafa? And it's like, it doesn't add to the story. It's just extra fluff. It's Chafa, you know. Shelley had no Chafa, whatever, right? That was like 0% fat on that book. Dead Friends, there is a section where it is nothing but Chaffa. And at one point, I was like, "Oh, God, is this going to be the rest of the book? I don't want to read this," and everything like that. We get past the Chaffa, and it gets back to being meaty. So there is a section, kind of after the first act, before we really get into the second act. There's this little in between Chaffas that I really wish he could have cleaned out a bit, because it did just seem like there was a lot of extra fluff. It also does seem like he's introducing elements as part of a bigger world that wasn't really answered in this. Like there's a woman that Lizzie sees in her dreams. And at one point, one of her friends goes to try to find this woman in the real world. And it seems to have something to do with this amulet that she would wear to chase the ghosts away, but she's not wearing it because apparently it sent them to hell, and she doesn't. And they came back kind of really pissed off, so she doesn't want to use the amulet anymore. They don't really resolve who that person is, but there's an epilogue where she's like, "Haha! Now I need to plan my next. Oh no, I'm being attacked by the big bad of this book and everything like that." And it kind of felt like it was really trying to set up like a book 2 or something like that. And I felt that part could have been a little bit better, because you don't want to introduce elements that you can't wrap up in your book, right? And when you do, and I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to set up a series, or a next book, or a universe, or kind of thing like that, which is fine. But you still need to. And I understand he was trying to wrap it up in this epilogue. He was trying to put a bow on it. Um, but a good example is, let's go back to the first Harry Potter. And at the end of the book, they're basically putting a bow on all these little loose ends, right? It's like, oh, but this is why the mirror worked for you, and this is what, and this is why Quirrell was the bad guy, and everything like that. And then it's like, okay, but why does Voldemort want me? And Dumbledore, and that's like the big question throughout the series, and J.K. Rowling doesn't answer it, but she puts a bow on it, where Dumbledore goes, the first question you asked me is the one I can't answer right now. So we do have this hanging thread from the first book, but we do put a bow on it. We're like, okay, this is going to be done for now. We understand it's not really resolved, but we're acknowledging it's not really resolved, and now we're going to go forward. And I feel like he was trying to do that with this woman, where she's reintroduced in the epilogue, and then she's a kind of attacked. I never really felt like that was satisfactory, because I really don't understand what she was doing. I think that could have been tied in. There seemed to be these sort of ancillary characters that didn't quite gel with the rest of the narrative, which is a shame, because the rest of the narrative was really good, right? When we're talking about this house, we're talking about this curse, we're talking about, she can't, the ghosts are following her. Uh, the amulet sent them away. All this stuff is really interesting and is really well written. And then somehow or another, we got vampires and werewolves in the thing. And I was like, did we need that? Everything else was so good. I was really into, um, this main plot, this main storyline. Um, did we have to sidestep into werewolves versus vampires for this? And I mean, and again, he didn't just drop it out of nowhere. There was these little hints sprinkled out where I was kind of like, are we talking about a vampire here? I hope we're not talking about a vampire. Yeah, it turns out we're talking about a vampire. So overall, there's a good story here, and I think it is a really good story. I'm just curious as to the extra layer of sprinkling that went on top of that that just doesn't seem to gel with the rest of the book. Like, I think if you pulled that part out, the book would be even stronger because we would have gotten rid of the Chaffa. Just my opinion. But overall, I think it was a strong book. Like I said, that opening scene, and it's several chapters where she comes in and this old undead naked guy like totally wails on her friend, starts attacking her and everything like that. Then she's in the hospital and she's having like hallucinations and everything like that while in the hospital. I mean, I was really hooked on the book at that point. And when she gets to the cabin after there's another one of her friends dies, and we start exploring the history of this curse and the family lineage, all that stuff is really interesting. I just think we could have stuck with that and not had the extra stuff that I don't think quite gels with the rest of the main story. That's just my opinion. But check it out and you tell me what you think. Let me know if you think that it's good the way it is, that the stuff makes sense, and I just wasn't paying enough attention. Or if you agree with me, say, yeah, if you could trim that down to the core story, it would have been a stronger book. I don't know. You tell me. Let me know. Check out Dead Friends by Jason R. Davis. Again, another award winner. And again, I've mentioned this before. When I'm being critical of these books, they're not on the podcast if they're not good. I'm being very nitpicky on these books because um, I want you, the reader, to know what to expect out of this book. And I'm not trying to 3 out of 5 stars. No. This is a good book. Check it out. I'm just offering what I think are the exceptions to what is otherwise a fantastic book. I am being very, very nitpicky right now. So please check it out. Let me know what you think. We'll see you next week here on the podcast. Remember, if you want to support the podcast, we do have a Patreon. Uh, Patreon/podbean.com/ oh, is that our Patreon? I don't even remember what our Patreon is. Nobody uses our Patreon. Come on. We'll put the link to the Patreon on the thing. We also have our website, shopspectralink.com, where you can go on and buy our books, including our latest award winner, Fear. You can buy your Indie Author Showcase t-shirt, your Indie Author Showcase mug or suitcase, or whatever else I can throw the Indie Author Showcase logo on. It's going to be there in the store. You can see us at Creep IE in just 2 weeks here in Southern California. So please support us, support the podcast, support indie authors in general. And until then, we'll see you next week and keep on reading.